And I hope you're all having a magical Monday. We are coming to you live here from the Illinois Media School here in the O'Hare campus. Again, I hope everybody out there is having a wonderful day. I know it's getting hot out there, so I hope everybody's staying cool. Obviously, we've been gone for a couple weeks, and I didn't really update you guys. I apologize on that. I meant to, but things got a little hectic. They obviously, many of you know, I've kind of been keeping you updated. My mother fighting her battle for cancer and everything. I'm happy to report that she had her surgery. Um, we had a few, moments where we were kind of very nervous, but overall, she's back home. She's doing good. So just want to say thank you to those of you fans who reached out. Thank you to the friends and family who obviously reached out as well. Really appreciate you guys. This was a very tough couple of weeks. So thank you guys all so much for all the support, all the love. It means a lot to myself, my family. So thank you guys. Thank you. We appreciate every single one of you. Obviously, we missed a lot. We didn't really get to recap a lot. I know the boys were kind of holding it down for blow the whistle and everything. I didn't get my chance to really do the show here, but we're back. We are back. I'm getting back to it. So I apologies if I'm not at 100%. If I make some mistakes, if I seem like I'm kind of spacing out, I apologize. I don't mean that for that to be the case. I just know my brain is going like 1,000 miles an hour right now, and I'm still trying to get back in this mode. So, but folks, without further ado, are you guys? I hope you guys are ready for this one because we're about to get this started, and we're kicking this one off with the NBA, folks. Yes, if you guys don't know the NBA, Chicago Bulls, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about the Bulls here, ladies and gents. They have been a question mark all season long. They have certainly made a lot of moves here in the offseason, and we are all very much I think we're all very much kind of sitting and waiting to see what the next move is going to be, what's going to happen for this team, right? And over the period of time we have been able to see this team this offseason, it has been a whirlwind of stuff, right? Alex Caruso's gone, Josh Giddey's in. They have made multiple moves in free agency and, of course, across the board as well. Certainly shaking things up for the team as well. I mean, look, this is not going to be the same team that the Bulls once knew, and they're still trying to make a lot of moves, right? They're still trying to make a lot of things happen for this roster in order to make themselves better. So it's going to be a new look. It's going to be a new transition. It's going to be a whole new situation for them in particular, right? I mean, we have seen this team for the last 2-3 years now. I mean, and they've been pretty good, right? They've had their moments where they've looked pretty good, but they've also had their moments where they've just looked terrible. They've just looked downright completely awful from whence they were. And, look, I don't know if what went wrong. Well, Lonzo went down with an injury. Certain guys have not performed up to the standards that they should. Is there divide in the locker room? Is there a sense of lack of camaraderie for the team? All of these things, I think, are varying possibilities. And where I'm standing at right now, I'm looking at this situation and I'm saying to myself, man, I genuinely don't know if where the Bulls are going at, or I was saying that for a while, but now I think I have an idea of the direction they're trying to go in, right? That was always the big question. Where are the Bulls at? Where is Chicago going as far as this team, this roster, all of that stuff? Who knows? I really can't say. One thing I do know, I'm so sorry. I only had 2 hours of sleep. I also didn't have any coffee, although I did. I took something that was supposed to help me with energy. I don't know if it's going to ever kick in. But, we sit here, we ponder, we wonder, and the Bulls have just done one thing after the next that have just made us all really kind of question, well, Are they making the right moves? Are they in a solid state where they're going to be competitive? And I think the answer to that is probably not, right? That's probably going to be something that we're going to have to kind of try to figure out going forward if they have the talent to be able to compete. I seriously doubt it. But overall, for what the Bulls have done so far, so one of the big moves obviously was they traded away DeMar DeRozan. He's going to the Kings, right? They're essentially going to be going for young potential. That's kind of the 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 gist of what they seem to be going for, right? Free agency, the offseason, that's kind of been the deal. DeMar DeRozan going to the Kings, the Bears, the Bulls are going to get Chris Girardi and a couple of draft picks. That's going to kind of help their team out potentially defensively and with draft picks for sure. A lot of people thought you could get a first round pick for him. A lot of people thought that DeMar DeRozan could get back first round value to a team that was certainly in desperation of trying to win a title or wanted to compete at least at a chance. My God, I gotta get out of this funk. At a chance to win the title. And I'll be honest, I don't think it was a bad move. I think it was a move simply to just say, look, the guy has done a lot for us. We want to try and do right by him. We want to get him somewhere competitive. We also want to try and get back what we can. But I think they have a plan in play. And I'm going to get to that plan here towards the end of this segment, right? But Chris Girardi, look, he's a decent defensive option that can play the wing, the guard. You've got draft picks for him. He's a solid young man that's not going to cost you a lot of money. He gives you an option that you can still work with, despite the fact that, yeah, he doesn't seem to be the first round value that maybe he started looking like when he was at Indiana and now has obviously moved from Indiana to the Kings when they made the trade for Buddy Hield and Tyrese Halliburton, okay? He's decent. He's not anything crazy. He's not anything great. He's decent. So it's a good move, I think, in the terms of like, okay, you got DeMar DeRozan off your books. You get to move on from him. You get to be a better team potentially down the line. That's kind of, I think, what they're looking for, right? That's the ultimate goal here is I think the Bulls down the line are thinking about more of their future and not so much of what is the current roster going to be looking like. Because outside of that, though, there is still questions because – one thing in free agency and the draft, and we're going to get to the draft here with the Bulls soon, one of the things that the Bulls were being projected to try and do was do all that they could to try and get Zach LaVine off the roster, right? This is supposed to be your top young guy. This is a guy who's in the prime of his career. This is a player that is supposed to be able to dominate games. That's the reason why you got him. That's what he was supposed to be. That's why you pay him all that money. And what you get instead is a guy who's hurt a lot, very nonchalant, not really showing the gusto to be that top player for your team. He thinks he is, but it's not working out in that favor. It's not playing to that effect. And because of that, the Bulls have tried everything they can to move on from Zach LaVine. The problem is they're getting nothing for him. Zilch, zitch, nada. Nobody wants him. There is zero interest in what Zach LaVine has to the NBA trade market, and that has become apparent. Now, I shouldn't say zero. There are teams that have certainly shown a little bit of interest, but it feels like it's close to zero as you can get because the price that the Bulls are trying to get, it feels like, is a first-round pick for him or a couple of them, and nobody's paying that. He's getting paid too much money. The production has been lacking. The injuries have been up. And quite frankly, I think there's a lot of people that are questioning his attitude. And I think when you put all of that stuff together, you end up kind of going, look, we're going to give you some players and maybe a pick, but that's about it. And now there's even rumors to say that, well, you may have to give a first-round draft pick with LaVine, and the Bulls might be willing to do that because they just got to get rid of him. You just got to drop his contract at this point because he's getting paid over $200 million to do pretty much the average that these guys are supposed to do, and he's supposed to be a superstar. Remember, this is a guy that made the All-Star game. This is a guy who won the dunk contest. This is a guy who was supposed to be one of those superior athletes that could just absolutely drive you to that next level. And he hasn't done that. Not really. He's been the best player on one of the worst to one of the most mediocre teams in the NBA. That doesn't translate very well to saying, well, we give you a $200 million contract, and when we trade you, we got to try and get first-round pick value back. That's bad business. Nobody's doing bad business, right? Nobody's taking the cigarette that you've already smoked. Nobody wants to drink from the glass you already drank from, right? Those type of things with Zach LaVine, he's already been used. He's already been broken in. He's a guy who's not really working in that sort of fashion, right? And when I say broken in and worked in, it's not like he's been working at a great level. No, he's been very average, and he's been hurt, and that's part of the problem. For a lot of people now, he's what you call damaged goods, right? It's not to say that there's no value there. It's just at the NBA business level, that's not going to work. That's not going to happen. Nobody's giving you a bunch of draft picks and a bunch of top prospects for Zach LaVine at that level. DeMar DeRozan has more value to his name because he's a more consistent player. He's a leader in the locker room. He's a guy who can go out and get a bucket when you need it. He's also a very clutch player. He can hit shots in the biggest moments in the biggest games. LaVine has not shown any of that. That's why there's so many questions about what this guy can do long term for any team out there. That's why nobody's buying into this. That's the problem for LaVine. DeMar makes sense because there's a lot of value in him despite the fact he is the older player. You get more out of him because of his productive levels with Chicago than you do with LaVine, who for the last year and a half or so has been plagued with injuries and bad play. Part of the problem is when you're not out there, you're not showing what you can do, you're not getting the reps, you're not getting the reputation, so you're not going to get the value you want back. But the Bulls did do something of value. They did get the NBA draft. And there was a lot of buzz about what the Bulls were going to do, who they were going to go after. Well, they got their guy, local kid, former local kid, G League Ignite star, 19-year-old kid, Mattis Buzelis, 6'9", white kid, coming out of the G League Ignite. Studded young guy, really talented, great shot, rebounding skills, defensive ability. He's got all the stuff that the Bulls are looking for as a three, as a wing that can score, that can hit threes. He's young. He's going to need some growing. But there's a lot there that you can like about this guy. And I had heard rumors that the Bulls were in pursuit of Buzelis, right? He grew up here in the suburbs of Chicago. He's a big fan of Derrick Rose and the Bulls, right? That's his team. This has been his team. Obviously, he moved off. He shipped off. He went to a better school, better opportunity. Can't blame him for that. Goes and joins the G League Ignite in what's now their last year and really is, I would say, one of their top, if not their top performer of the year. At 19 years old, you take over like that. I know those guys are pros on like the lower level, but you're still competing at a pretty decent level against some guys that were first-round picks, are NBA players or were NBA players, and he's doing some pretty good work against them. I was really shocked when the Bulls had a chance to get him. I wasn't sure if they were going to take him or what the Lakers took in Dalton Connect. I thought it was between those two guys. They need three-point shooting. Here's two guys that shoot the ball really well from three. I didn't think Buzelis was going to be there that long, but he was. And sure enough, Bulls get their guy. And he seems to be a young, engaging player. He seems to be talented. He seems to be a guy who wants to do right by the city. He's got confidence. Could be cockiness. Could be overconfidence. Could be ego. But it's good to have some of those guys that time, and this guy's got it. But what's the plan? What is the long-term plan for the Bulls? I think it's just being bad. I think it's just being a bad team. I'm calling it failing for flag, right? Because right now, America has been captured by this other white dude who looks a lot like Buzelis, by the way. Cooper Flagg, right? He's your prototypical All-American kid. He jumps out of the gym. He's the most hyped player I think we've seen out of high school since Zion Williamson. This dude can dunk. This dude can hit threes. This guy can play defense, rebounds, block shots, assists. You name it, he does it. An extremely talented individual in every way. Now the question is, though, can the Bulls win the Cooper Flagg sweepstakes? I don't know. Because everybody in the NBA is going to try to get this kid. If you are a team who is probably on the cusp of being another bad team yet again, or potentially looking at the chance to maybe try and restart your franchise over with a franchise player, everybody is viewing this kid as a franchise player. And he's talented. He is talented. There's no question. But Cooper Flagg is also a player that I think we have to hold a little bit of caution on, right? You have to be a little bit suspect about whether or not this guy is the real deal, too. Because he's only in high school. He's about to go to college at Duke. Duke has produced a lot of great players at his position of the guard and wing. But, is he going to produce it? I mean, look, I come from a city where Duke got one of the best players in high school basketball, Jabari Parker, right? He's a legend here in the city of Chicago from Simeon. Jabari Parker went to Duke. He was one of their best players on that team at Duke, right? He goes to the draft. The Bucks took him second overall. He never found his footing in the NBA. Now, I'm not saying that could happen with Cooper Flagg. And it's not just because he goes to Duke. It's not anything like that. I'm just saying, here's a guy who did the exact same thing that Cooper Flagg did, other than he left high school to go to a different team or whatever. But this is a guy, did the exact same route, had all the kind of big, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed prospect love from the NBA, and everybody was so happy when he finally got in the league. I was like, man, I hope the Bulls can get him. They were never going to get him. But when he was out there, I thought, man, it would be great if the Bulls could draft Jabari Parker. How cool would that be? Best player in the draft, potentially. Best player for the NBA, for the Bulls, right? Hometown kid coming home from Simeon. It had the Derrick Rose feel to it. And at that time, Derrick Rose was still on the Bulls. He was still a part of that team. So there was like hope, like, hey, we could have the two Simeon guys right next to each other. That doesn't happen, obviously. It's okay. It's okay. I just wonder, though, if this kid is everything he's supposed. He looks legit. And is it right for the Bulls to tank to try and get better? Well, it's worked for some teams. Some teams, it's about the art of the deal, right? Oklahoma City makes all these drafts, has all these picks because they've made all these right moves to trade guys away for the right amount of stuff, while still keeping a core of talent together that made them the number one team in the Western Conference. Some teams try to do the tank for the better, right? But we've seen that where it succeeded. Boston, you could make the argument, had certainly done that, and it succeeded in their way. Philadelphia, however, as many of you know, tanked for a long time. And they didn't necessarily get worse, but they didn't really get to where they wanted to be. I mean, they did get better at the end of the day. But not every draft pick that was in that tanking process necessarily worked out to their favor, right? Joel Embiid is probably the only one that actually has any real value to his name. Otherwise, the rest of those guys for the Philadelphia 76ers, you can take them or leave them, I think, at this point. Look, I'll say this for the Bulls to kind of wrap it all up for them. Do they have a legit opportunity to be a good team this year? Of course they do. I think they always do. I think every team does if you can get everybody to click and get on the right level. Do I think that's the smart move for the Bulls to make? No, I actually agree with the idea of tank, get worse, and let's try and get picks for this team and let's see where they can go. But if that is not, I don't know where what is the deal, though, because I don't think Carter Silvis wants to lose. I don't think Eversley wants to move, the front office guys. And I certainly don't think Billy Donovan wants to lose either. because I think they're all afraid that if we show that we're going to be losing, Reinsdorf, the owner, is going to get upset, and Jerry Reinsdorf is going to eventually fire them and start looking for new guys to run the front office and the head coach. And that just is going to spell more animosity for this organization by saying, oh, here we go again. We got to start all over from the beginning. Because new regime, new coach, wants new players, wants different draft picks, and that just changes the dynamic of the team altogether. They're going to have an interesting season going forward. Summer leagues look like it's been good to them. Young guys are producing. They've got talent across the board for sure. Is it going to be ready in time to help them be competitive? Probably not. But I wouldn't sit here and worry too much, because if you're putting your expectations on the Bulls winning a championship anytime soon, I'd laugh you out of the building right now if that was your thought process. Because that shouldn't even come close to that. Not even close. But we'll see. We'll see. Going to be interesting to see how the Bulls play these next few months are going to be telling for the Bulls as they prepare for the upcoming season for the NBA. Really intriguing stuff. All right. Well, folks, obviously let us know. What do you think about the Bulls situation? Do you agree with the moves that they made? What do you think they're going to do with Levine? Do you like Buzelis? Do you think they should throw their hat in the Cooper Flag sweepstakes and try for him? Answer all those questions down below. We want to hear from you guys in the comments section. Please let us know what you guys think. When we get back, we are going to answer your questions. A lot of you guys have been answering some good questions. I picked some of the ones that I've kind of had stand out to me a lot more. So I apologize if we don't get to all the questions. We have time, but I don't want to waste too much time. But obviously we'll answer those questions when we come back here on the X-Bomb Sports Live Show.
Man, I'm so hungry. I need somewhere to eat fast. I have no idea where to go.
Psst. Hola, me llamo El Taco de Taco. You know where to go for the amazing taste that I have you craving more? Taco Bell.
All right, can I get 20 tacos, please?
You got it.
Thanks, Taco.
De nada.
Good. That's it. Eat the tacos.
Taco Bell. Live más.
Wear your best attitude. Feel the power. Run towards your goals. Make each footprint count. Believe in yourself. Mark the difference. Just do it.
Celsius, the fastest growing energy drink in America. 0 sugar, low calories, and 200 milligrams of caffeine. Celsius is the ideal drink for anyone who wants to get the most out of their day. 4 distinct flavors: orange, kiwi guava, wild berry, white peach. Drinking Celsius prior to fitness activities has proven to accelerate your metabolism, burn body fat, and provide essential energy. Celsius. Live fit. The official drink of Chad Podcast.
And welcome everybody here to the X-Bomb Sports Live Show. Welcome back. We just got done talking about the Bulls, kind of as just like a start to things again for everybody that missed that first half there. We were talking about the situation for their offseason thus far. But now, as we usually do, we are answering your fan questions. That's right, the X-Bomb fan questions section. If you guys have any questions at all, of course, you guys can always send those in to xbsportsofficial@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you guys as well about those questions, any comments, anything like that. So please keep sending them in once again. And so, let's start this one off. The first question we have here is it's one that I've gotten a bunch of emails about, and it has to deal with being real about Bronny. I couldn't pick one person in general because there was so many of you who asked me different questions, but basically the question was, are my thoughts and my predictions about Bronny James Jr. So for those who don't know, let's break it down. Bronny James Jr., son of LeBron James, guard out of USC, picked 55th overall in the NBA draft by the Lakers, the team his father plays on. A lot of buzz, a lot of talk about he's probably the most popular name in this draft by far. And certainly, love him or hate him, there was a lot of people that were balancing on both sides for this young man. Had his press conference with the Lakers, we hear new head coach J.J. Redick for the Lakers say Bronny has earned this. Rob Pelinka gave what I would accumulate to a pretty blanket statement for Bronny as far as his potential as a player and everything. Look, I'm gonna just, like you said, you guys were asking me to give my real honest opinion because it seemed to be that everyone in media, I shouldn't say everyone, but a majority of people out there were really trying to kind of sugarcoat this as much as possible, right? Trying to find some sort of way to throw in the love for this guy, show some sort of compassion. I mean, they weren't broken away from trying to say, like, look, this kid's got some issues, certainly, that he's going to have to work out, but they were always trying to seemingly sugarcoat to make it seem like he was still a guy that could be an excellent player. And I've watched him now through some summer league games. I've watched him in college. I've watched him even in high school. I've never watched a kid who I thought had so much pressure on him and yet at the same time was also given such high expectations, as well as also people willing to kind of push him, I guess you could say, to see which direction he could potentially go in and how good he could potentially be. It just, it in all honesty, I don't think, okay, because I want to slow this down real quick. Because, like you said, my mind's going everywhere at this point. I think Bronny James Jr. is a decent player for the NBA. I don't think he's anything special, though. What makes him special is who his father is. And what makes him special is what his last name carries, which is legacy, right? You're LeBron James' son. Okay. Talented. He's a really good defender. Scoring, not really his forte. And you don't have to score points to be in this league. But you got to be a shutdown point guard at the perimeter. And I don't think he does that. I've seen guys who have gone games without scoring a basket, but they can make an impact by being great defenders. Can Bronny do that? I think Bronny has the ability to eventually be one of those guys, but I don't think Bronny James Jr. is necessarily going to be that top key player that takes over a game, transforms you into an organization that flips the switch and suddenly is competing for titles. I don't see that. When he was in high school, he was very average, never really took over a game. I mean, he really wasn't even the best player on his high school team. He was barely ranked, from what I understood, in the top 30, 40 players in the country. A lot of, I think, what pushed him is his name, and that's not his fault. The kid's just being himself. The problem is that LeBron James, his father, comes out and says, Yeah, I want to play with my kid. And hey, what parent wouldn't love working with their child? What parent wouldn't love to have the opportunity to be able to say, you mean I can spend time with my family in that kind of capacity? I have that ability? Who wouldn't love that? Is this nepotism too? Dad got me the job. Dad got me drafted into the NBA. Yeah, of course. Is nepotism a bad thing? I don't think it's a bad thing unless you're deserved of it. I can't speak for anybody else, but for myself, I grew up in a family that was middle class. My parents taught me the value of hard work. And that's what I've done since I've been 16 years old, I've worked my butt off. I won't lie, I've had my moments. I've had slip-ups, of course. We've all made mistakes. I do have regrets, of course. But I learned to live with those, and I learned from them. But for my parents, they gave me stuff when I was a kid, but those were toys. I never got handed a job. I had to work for it. I never got handed a spot on any team. I had to work for it. Bronny, again, it's not his fault. I don't think it's the kid's fault. You can't blame the kid. I think you can blame his father, though, for adding pressure where pressure was not needed. One thing I can tell you right now is that I've worked with high school kids in recruiting. The last thing kids want is pressure. They will collapse. Okay? I don't know about you, Antonio, but when I was in high school, if I ever felt pressure coming from my family, I always felt like I was about to crumble. I don't know how you felt, but yeah, exactly the same. So I figured as much. Because why? Because when family puts pressure on you for stuff like that, like on anything, yeah, you're gonna start to feel a little bit of that oof, I don't know. This is a lot to handle. I can tell you this right now. The pressure I have felt over the last few weeks, rather the last few months, has been a lot. I'm surprised my back is still in place. My mentality might be a little changed, but not for the worse, I would say. But more so, I've definitely conveyed a new way of thinking for sure. But I don't like the fact that a guy like LeBron James will get, hey, I want to play with my son. And then a couple weeks ago, he's out there talking in an interview saying, Bronny doesn't care about the pressure. He doesn't care about the pressure. He's not like me when I cared about pressure. Here's what I will say, though. As an athlete, when people put pressure on you, that can be a lot. But when you're putting pressure on yourself from the media and stuff like that, for LeBron, it made him into one of the greatest players to ever play the game. If Bronny's not feeling the pressure, he may not be the same player ever that his dad is. He may not even be the same player as Tyrese Halliburton or any of these other guys. He may just be another guy that bounces around the league, goes and plays overseas, plays in the G League. I mean, and he has said, I'm fine with whatever my assignment is. I play with the Lakers. I play in the G League. I'm fine. And that's great. Again, this is not really about Bronny, because I think Bronny is going to be a pretty decent player for the NBA. At the height of his powers, I think he's Malcolm Brogdon, who's a 3-and-D defender. But it's guys like J.J. Redick who said, well, Bronny's earned this. He didn't earn it. You drafted him as a favor to his father. Don't lie to us. We know why you did what you did. Don't lie. It's okay. I get it. You've got to say what you got to say. Rob Pelinka's got to say what he's got to say. But don't lie. We know those are lies. You drafted Bronny as a favor to his father. You gave in to the king, right? The king said, "This is really, I really would love to play with my son." He wasn't going to go to Phoenix. He wasn't going to go to Dallas. He was going to go to the Lakers because that's where his father is. And LeBron was not leaving the Lakers because that's where his house is with his wife and his other kids. He's not leaving. That's the one thing I find ridiculous about this. It's not Bronny. It's the fact that there are all these forces around him. Dad, coach, GM, agent too, by the way. LeBron's friend, Rich Paul, who's also LeBron's agent. They're all pushing this narrative that Bronny has potential. Bronny has earned this. Bronny is one of those guys that you know is special. Oh, player development, he could be a guy for the future. He certainly could, but these are all things you're trying to sell us on when we know from first glance, watching him in high school, watching him in college, he didn't make the high school team that much better, and he didn't make the college team any better. He started in college for a few games. At that point, USC looked very mediocre. They already didn't look like a very good team as it was, but they looked halfway decent. He comes in, they're very average. That's the problem. You're trying to sell me this bag of goods, and I'm not going to buy into it because, quite frankly, everybody's trying to sell me things that I'm not seeing. I'm seeing different things. I hear what you're saying. I hear it, but I see something else. That's the problem. Don't sell me beans and tell me they're magic and I can climb that sucker and get the goose that lays the golden egg. Maybe they're just flowers. Or cabbage, right? Or what else grows out of the ground? Tomatoes, right? Why would I don't know why I thought tomatoes grow on trees. I'm sorry. It's welcome back to the show. But it's just like one of those things where it's like, okay, cool, like it's fine, but it's obviously not what you were sold. I feel bad for Bronny because he's going to get constantly berated by the media. And he's going to be constantly attacked on social media. And for a 19-year-old kid, none of us want that. And I'm not necessarily blaming his dad and JJ Redick and Rob Pelinka and Rich Paul. I'm not necessarily blaming them for that stuff that's going to potentially most likely happen. But they do serve some part of the blame for if Bronny probably does not work out. Like, hey, Dad, you put pressure on your kid. JJ, you tried to sell everybody a bill of goods. Rob Pelinka, you tried to make everybody believe that this was a good draft pick. And Rich Paul tried to sell everybody in the league to say that this was a kid that was worthy of being a first-round pick at one point. Give me a break. And look, I'll answer this question too. If I had the opportunity to get my kid a job at my company that doesn't exist right now, but I'm hoping one day will. Like, let's say this. X-Bomb Sports, Tripod Media, when we become a thing, right? When we become a thing and we hire all these people that we've got, that have been helping us. If my kids at some point, whenever it is, he or she want to get into the business of media, I am going to help them. I am going to use all my resources to help them get into the business if they want to. But I'm going to tell them, you're going to have to work for it. I tell this to my cousins right now. Hey, you want something? Go work for it. I will help you however I can, but I am not going to give it to you. You have to work for it. You have to earn it. I've seen it so many times where kids are kind of just given things. And this is not prevalent for every single child, right? But there are tons of times where I've seen guys, men and women, guys and girls who are kind of given stuff for a long time in their life. And I've grown up with a lot of these people in my life that are just given things, and they don't grasp the value of working hard. And I'm not saying Bronny hasn't, but more oftentimes than not, when you work hard for stuff, you learn the value of how those things come about, which makes you better. Iron sharpens iron. That is one of the big sayings, right? It's important that people understand that there is value in not just being given stuff. Personally, my opinions are I think Bronny's going to be a decent player. At the height of his powers at 25, 26 years old, he should be a decent player coming off the bench in the NBA. Ultimately, he could just be a starter that plays overseas. But if he even stops playing in the NBA, the guy's made $4 million in college off of 1 year. And his father has generational wealth as a billion-dollar athlete. I don't think Bronny's in a bad spot. And if Bronny would like to, I'll switch spots with him. You know what I could do with his inheritance? Get out of this place. All right. Thank you guys all for that question. I appreciate it. All right, we'll rip through these really quickly. I don't want to last too long in this. So this one came from our guy, Miles. And these are a little bit sadder, and I apologize for that. I'm not trying to kill the mood or anything on this, guys. But, this comes from our guy, Jason. Jason asks the question. He says, dude, I just saw the post about Kyrie Jackson, the cornerback for the Minnesota Vikings, who got in a car accident and passed away at the age of 24, and he just asked the question of why do you think so many athletes are dying so young these days? It's a good question. Look, I have there's a multitude of reasons why. You know, you just never know. Unfortunately, I don't. There's not one singular answer to this necessarily, because when it comes to a lot of these athletes, you know, they're young individuals a lot of times, or individuals sometimes even older, right? I mean, you know, in this case, it was an accident. It was a car accident. In a lot of other cases, there have been other things, you know. There's been drug overdoses. There's been a lot of other sad moments that have happened. I don't know what the main reason for it is. I do know this, though, is that I think more than anything trying to figure out, well, what is the reason necessarily, and I hope this doesn't sound bad, okay? I hope it doesn't come off bad. Trying to find the reason for why an athletes might be dying at a young age is very hard to do, I think. And I think the more important thing here is to try and drive, well, what can we do to prevent that from happening, right? You know, unfortunately, there's a lot of different parts to it, right? This was one. Kyrie Jackson he went back home, and he got in a car accident, you know. He got in an accident. There have been others, obviously, who have been athletes, and they've died in shootings. I've known a couple of them. Not famous guys, but, you know, I've known athletes who the world's in your hand and you got everything there, and it's like, well, the next day you hear, hey, did you hear what happened to so-and-so? They're like, yeah, he's gone. And it's sad. It's sad. You know, nobody wants this stuff to happen, obviously. And then you add on, obviously, Jacoby Jones, right, is the most recent guy. Passed away in his sleep at 42 years old. And that obviously kind of makes us all think, like, well, what could have happened? Obviously, nothing's been reported about what could have caused this. But you don't know what an athlete might be dealing with at 42 years old. At that point, you know, your body's been through a lot. You're trying to manage the pain. You're trying to manage the life after football situation, which I'm sure he may have done easily. It sounded like he was living his best life, but for all we know, he might have been struggling with it. And that's why it is so important that people ask how others are doing. Check in with your friends and check in with your family. I can tell you this right now. There's only one person here, but I can tell you this, Antonia, how much I thank you for checking in with me. And all the other people that are not here, but were out there that checked on me, because, you know, what I went through it's not something I can ease. I'll tell you this, I was not the only one going through it, sitting in that room waiting to hear news about what was going on with my mom. There was plenty of other people that were going through the exact same thing we were. And in a lot of ways, we were helping each other kind of through it. And that is so key. You know, a while back, I got a question from somebody who asked us about, the young golfer who had unfortunately committed suicide, and we found out later. He's a young guy. He's like in his 30s, and he commits suicide, and you think, well, what went wrong? What happened? And I just think it's like, well, I don't think that's the thing to ask. I think more of it's like, well, how can we make sure that that doesn't happen again? And a lot of it, I think sometimes, look, it's life, right? Car accident, life is just there. A shooting, sometimes life is there. But there are also times where I think it is preventable. Not going to this area, not going back home, staying away from the drugs, staying away from this, that, and the other. I mean, listen, everybody's got to live their life, right? But to some degree, I mean, why are so many athletes dying at such a young age? I think there's no clear answer to that because there's 1,000 answers I could give you. The question I think should be, is there a solution to this? And it's, yeah, I think you have to just be able to talk with these guys more. And quite frankly, I think everybody in this life now, I think, needs therapy. I mean, see a therapist, see a psychologist. I think every person in life can use it. From a child all the way to a elderly adult could use some sort of therapy. Or I think everybody's got something in their brain that they're still trying to work through in some regard, right? I've been to it. Hell, I went to it this week. It's something that helps if you think it does. But I think it's more about the solution and less about what is the problem. Let's find the solution. I mean, again, I don't mean for that to come off. If it comes off bad, I apologize. I don't mean it to. I hope I'm not saying anything wrong here. Because I think, yeah, if you can't identify the problem, then you can find the solution a lot easier. But I think dwelling on the problem can sometimes take a lot longer than trying to find the solution. That's kind of where... That's how I've worked, right? I have regrets. Yeah, you have regrets, but okay, well, what's the thing you learned from the regret? That's how I've kind of lived my life. I do regret this thing, but I've learned not to do this, right? I regret this person, but I've learned don't be around that person. Simple as that. It's sad to see two guys go, one a veteran, one a young player whose career was just starting. And the saddest part about it is that this is not going to be the last. And that's why we have done as much as we can to try and help athletes wherever we can. We have done a lot to try and make sure that these stories get out there because it's important too. You hear these stories, you might want to be able to say, hey, I need help. Go get help. It's, yeah. And trust me, it's in the back of my mind, but I know playing football possibly gave me CTE. That's chronic traumatic encephalopathy. That's where proteins attack the brain, and all of a sudden, a person could suddenly have dementia. It usually comes at an older age, but there's been football players who have had it as young as 20, 18 years old. And they've taken their own life. So that's present in my life. That's present in everybody who's played football likely in their lives. It's just what severity could it be? That's the question. When you've played a long NFL career, you're probably going to have a much more severe case. I played 4 years of high school and 1 year of college, but still, you take in every time you were hitting somebody, every time you were banging somebody, every time you were doing something like that. Who knows, right? So again, I don't think there's the question. I appreciate the question, Jason. It's just not about the problem. I think it's more about the solution. All right. So this was going to be a quick one. I'm just going to say, it just said, this is from Adrian. Adrian asked us a question. Adrian's from Texas too, by the way. He said, after this weekend with the whole thing that happened with President Trump, which for those who don't know, an assassination attempt was made on his life. He is still alive. It missed. However, it did hit his ear. He was bleeding from that portion. But certainly it happened during the RNC, the Republican National Convention, which was, kind of the moment where it's like, okay, this is who we're picking for president kind of situation. He's just basically asking, where do you see America's future? I know this is kind of out of the ball. That's not in the city range, the sports range. I'm just gonna make this one real quick. I think our future's murky at best. I love this country. I do with all my heart. I wouldn't want to live anywhere. Well, Spain's pretty cool. Canada's all right. And it's not a country, but I go back to Puerto Rico as much as I can. But it's a fantastic place. It gives us great opportunities. But it definitely does feel like we're at a point where I don't know exactly where we're at as a society anymore. I mean, I can remember going 20 years back. We were talking about this when we were kids. Go about 23 years back when 9/11 happened. I think the whole world changed after that moment. And what I've experienced through my life, I've seen a lot of good things, but I've also seen a lot of bad things. So what's America's future at this point? Again, we're not a political show. I'm not about to get into that stuff. All I'm going to say is I think we're at a murky point in this country's future. And I'll tell you this right now. I can't afford it, but if I had the opportunity to, I might be looking at plane tickets to move somewhere else. I know that Italy has this thing where if you go and refurbish a house, which those houses are like $1 million, but if you refurbish those houses, you can live there for free for like a year or something like that. Or no, they'll pay you to live there. So if anybody's got a couple million around to buy a house out there for us to refurbish, we'll move to Italy. I know one person that would definitely love that, for sure. Yeah, of course you. No, the other person that's not been to Italy. I figured. But yeah, I that's all I can really say on that. I was, like I said, I got no political values in on this stuff at all. All I know is that, lives being taken and violence happening, I'm not a big supporter of that, okay? I'm somebody who has to carry a weapon for work, and I'm not a big proponent of having that thing on my hip. I've actually asked if I can not wear it, but by rule, I have to actually have it with me. And I've always been somebody who has been stressed about the responsibility of having that. Do you have to have your license? I do. Yeah, I do. I had to get licensed, which was something I did not want to do. I can't stress that enough. I've seen a lot of stuff in my life, and I am one of the last people who would want to hold a gun. But it's part of my job. I don't hold it all the time. I've never even had to pull it out really once. Okay, I've pulled it out a couple times, but that's for another time and separately. But otherwise, I've never. I don't know. Like I said, I think this country, it's murky waters. That's the best that I can say for you, because otherwise, and even saying that, I know I'm gonna probably tick people off, because you just can't make anybody happy anymore when it comes to talking about this stuff. But I guess all I can say is best of luck to us in the hopes that our future is going to be brighter than what it is now. So that's going to do it for us here, ladies and gentlemen. That's going to do it for the show. Obviously, thank you again to everybody for the questions. We appreciate it. You guys are awesome. Thank you again for sending that stuff. Means a lot to us that you guys are willing to communicate with us. Thank you also again to, I want to say thank you everybody for all the emails I got of people who were saying, I hope your mom's doing okay. I hope everything's all right. I hope you're doing well. Just random fans. And it just reminds me why I do this. Sorry. I really appreciate it. What you guys have done for me, and sorry. No, I'm good. I'm okay. Just thank you all so much. I appreciate it. My family appreciates it. I can't tell you how happy my mom was when she found out I started doing this. It's been 7 years now. It's gonna be 8 in September. Jeez. Um, but I appreciate you guys who have stuck with us from the very beginning when we were just some crappy show off of a bad green screen with a terrible table with 4 of us around us and bad mics. And you've stuck it through with us all the way to this point. And I just can't say thank you to you guys enough. Sorry. Sorry about that. But yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate that. Guys, if you want to find any more of us, you guys can find us at XBomb Sports on YouTube and on Twitch. If you guys want to check any more of us out, we're always streaming every Monday. Well, most Mondays. But we're trying for every Monday. We may have to go earlier at points because there's other classes that have to get in here. So apologies if it doesn't come like late in the afternoon like this, but yeah, so be on the lookout for that. Twitch.tv/XBombSports, YouTube.com/XBombSports. If you guys want to check out any more of our stuff as well, too, you want to follow us any more at XBombSports on Twitter and on Instagram. We're going to be posting on there a lot more and stuff, so be on the lookout for that. If you guys want to follow us individually, personally myself, I'm at The Fluffy Guru on Twitter. I'm also at Boom Crew Captain on Instagram as well. If you guys want to check out any more content we're going to be doing, we have Blow the Whistle, of course. That's at Blow T Whistle 1 on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. We're going to be doing that probably around 2 o'clock here. So check us out on the radio side. We will shoot the stream out as soon as we get the opportunity to. So be on the lookout for that. We are also, too, as well, there's another show out there, if you guys don't know, Tony Smalls x Big J. It features our very own Antonia in the back there and Big J themselves. They were playing horror games. Now they're playing a game that's probably the scariest one of them all because I'm seeing them get very angry and frustrated at points. Not to each other, no. Well, not yet. Not yet. But that's a strong friendship there. That just proves it. So it is. They're playing It Takes Two. For those that don't know, it has been so much fun to watch them play this game, and I can't stress enough. You guys should come check out, watch them play it. It's been a great game to watch them play. There's at least one episode in there that I can say 90% of it was them dying in one spot specifically over and 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 over again. So definitely go check that out, guys. And I think that covers everything. Oh, and Bad Karma Wrestling as well. Of course, Bad Karma Wrestling every Friday. They're shooting at 11:30, so be on the lookout for that. David and Nick talking everything wrestling. I'm sure they had a lot of big news to talk about with a lot of the wrestling world, so be on the lookout for that. We really appreciate you guys kind of being able to help support that show as well. We're kind of actually making plans at some point maybe to do another live show like we did with our draft show, potentially back at Dave & Buster's for the wrestling show as well, so we will keep you guys updated on that. We still have to work out those details, but be on the lookout for that, guys, because we're planning on having another fun event. So please, if you can, maybe come out and enjoy it with us. But other than that, guys, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. Again, I appreciate and love you guys all so much. You're the best fans in the world, and I couldn't ask for anybody better to join me on this journey as we continue on to do this show. Probably until I die here on camera. I don't know. That's kind of my goal, I think, at this point. 105, and I'll still be up here talking sports, and then I'll just knock out, I guess. I don't know. But we'll go as long as I can, I guess. So, but thank you all so much again for watching. Enjoy it. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you guys next week. And as always, much love. Peace out, Boom Crew.